evening and welcome into the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show, live from the coach's office here on campus and presented by Smith's Low Prices and Market Fresh, and proud supporter of Utah Athletics. I'm Bill Riley. For the next hour, we'll talk Utah basketball. If you're watching us on the live stream tonight, you can tell the man sitting next to me is not Larry Krystkowiak. He's got just a little less hair than Larry does, and he's about 6 inches shorter. Andy Hill sitting in tonight for Coach, who's out on the road recruiting, but we'll still talk Utah basketball, and we'll have Riley Batten swing by in a little while as well, find out how the freshman year is going for Riley. If you want to reach the program, you can do so via text at 877-353-0700 or hit me up on Twitter at ESPN700Bill. Of course, tonight's show and every show brought to you by our friends at Anheuser-Busch, proud supporters of Utah Athletics, reminding you to enjoy responsibly. Andy, how are you?
I'm good, Bill. You forgot to mention better looking, though.
Well, I didn't want to say that in case he was listening tonight wherever he was on the road, because then I have got to answer to him. You don't have to worry about it. Then I've got to answer to him next week. So things are good. You guys had the day off today, gave the guys the day off since you played yesterday, and it's a school holiday up here on campus. But all is well. You're coming off your third conference win of the year.
Yeah, it was nice to get the guys a little break, considering last week we had to practice so much. It's not typical for a college season to have that many days in a row when you're practicing, but I will give the guys a lot of credit. They did a heck of a job last week with good energy and effort and intensity, and we had great practices all week long, which I think led us into Sunday afternoon versus the Buffs.
We'll pass out we only have one game to talk about this week, but we will pass out our Player of the Week award and our Subway Sub of the Game award. But before we do any of that, and that'll be a segment or so away, I would say the first half yesterday might have been the best half of basketball you guys played this year. Good opponent. Defense, you held them to 19 points in the first half. You scored 41 points yourself in the first half. I know you guys have really been emphasizing defense because it's not clearly where you want it to be. The offense has been pretty good. But when you guys met after the game as a staff and looked at the game tape today, did you feel like that maybe that 20 minutes was the best you played this year?
Yeah, it was pretty dang good. The guys did a good job. We had good energy, good effort, good ball pressure, less mistakes, and it led to some good offensive possessions. We were able to throw the press in there a little bit, which kind of got us going, and I don't think that they were quite ready for it because we hadn't done a bunch of it, and obviously they were out without their starting point guard, who's a heck of a player. So I think a combination of that stuff. And second half I watched, start of the second half was pretty dang good. It was about the 14-minute mark where it got a little sloppy. We missed some blockouts and missed some assignments, and then it got a little closer than it should have.
Well, that's easy to do when you have a big lead, but that is 2 games in a row you guys have kind of done that too. You did that a little bit in the second half when you had a big lead against Wazoo as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And we talked about it at halftime, and you can't. You're kind of flirting with disaster there a little bit, and you don't want to create that when you have a chance not to.
Is that just a young team, and not super young, but a lot of young guys that haven't been through it, know how to protect big leagues and keep that foot on the gas?
I think a little bit. Watching the tape, when some of the mistakes were happening, we were a little younger out there, and I think, as you say, you got to keep your pedal on the gas because it doesn't take much. Leads evaporate pretty quickly, especially with that three-point line. And we kind of got them going, missed blockouts, a couple different things, but all in all, pretty good effort.
Yeah, back to the first half for just a minute. It was not only good ball pressure, but you guys really extended your defense out, even when you weren't picking up full court. You were really pushing Colorado out, and it was also a time where you were getting some runouts, and we were seeing some things we haven't seen the last 2 or 3 years in Utah basketball. A lot of fast breaks. I think you were 17-2 in fast break points. You guys haven't done a lot of that the last couple of years. And a little bit of fun out there, too. Yeah. I mean, those guys, the young guys, Booth Gotch and Timmy Allen and Cedric Bearfield, those guys looked like they were out there having some fun. And you were seeing smiles in the lob off the backboard and things like that, some things we haven't seen. And I know you guys talked in the offseason about wanting to play some more up-tempo. You hadn't been able to do it a lot, but is that kind of where you want that up-tempo to come from, is from the defense?
Yeah, I think it helps a lot when you can create defense like that, leads to good offense. And Colorado's a team that sends forward to the glass most of the time. They rebound with their guards. And so consequently, you're going to see some more runouts because they're all down around the basket for the most part. So we've been hammering home all week long. if we can do a good job rebounding, we're going to have a chance to run. And the guys bought into it, and we boarded pretty good for the most part watching the film. That's where we got a little sloppy the second half, but in the first half, it was dang good. We had hands on balls, we had rebounds, and we were out, and it led to some good stuff.
There's no way to quantify it exactly, but how much did Colorado miss McKinley Wright yesterday?
Oh, I think a ton. He's a great player and kind of their energizer bunny. I mean, you saw him last year out there. They're a complete different team with him. So, you know, when we play in Boulder, it's going to be a different game.
Yeah, assuming that shoulder doesn't continue to bother him or pop out of place again, you guys will likely see him. I think that game is the second to last series of the year. I think the last series is the California schools maybe, but I think Colorado's the last road trip of the year for you guys.
Yeah, I think you're right, for sure.
So what did you like about what did you like most about yesterday? Obviously the win's a win. You liked the first half. What else stood out to you in that game?
Well, I think we finally were able to play defensively how you've seen us play in the past. We had a good week of practice, and the guys did a nice job. I think that's the one thing that stood out. I think those freshmen had a little fun, and they got a sense for that. Timmy Allen had a double-double. So there was a lot of positives come away from the game with.
On the negative side, I'm sure you guys would probably like a little bit more out of the post. You didn't get a whole lot out of your post offensively, and that's been the case most of the year, but in a game like that, they rebounded okay. I think both Novi and Jace Johnson rebounded, but you didn't get a lot point-wise out of those guys.
No, and looking back on the tape, they didn't have a ton of post-up opportunities because we were out and running and we were hitting threes. But there were some opportunities, and we talked about that after the game. We'd like to see a little more production out of those two spots from a scoring standpoint. But they did a heck of a job rebounding. Jace blocked a couple shots. They were up around the rim. Novi got a couple blocks. So there was some good stuff too, just from a scoring standpoint. And sometimes that's just what the box score is. There wasn't a ton of that.
Right. So the Utes win 78-69. They're now 3-2 in conference play. They're 9-8 overall. And in a conference where there's not a great team this year, maybe some good teams, I think the thing's still wide open, Andy.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. I think this next week's probably going to create a little separation with who's playing who, but you're absolutely right. The Pac-12 tournament could be really exciting because I think there's a lot of parity. Obviously, when you look at a team like Washington with all those seniors, they should be good. I mean, they've got some crazy stat with how many games those guys have played together. When you think about Chris, Tybal, the big fella, and Green.
Yeah, they returned almost 96% of their offense from a year ago.
Yeah, so they should be good, and they got a plan. They're doing a good job, and so I would think right now with where they're at, they've got a leg up.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the conference as the show goes on here tonight. We'll name our player of the week and our sub of the week coming up in just a couple of minutes. Obviously, this week's a trip to the Bay Area, out of the snow and cold, and playing Stanford on Thursday night, and then Cal coming up on Saturday night. We'll talk about those games as well. You're tuned in to the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show, presented by Smith's. We'll take our first time out. Back to some awards from the weekend, and look ahead to Stanford a little bit next. This is Utah basketball from Learfield. Well, that's how you do the do. That's our Pepsi and Mountain Dew Code Red play of the week. The off-the-backboard dunk that even made SportsCenter last night. Booth Gotch to Timmy Allen, and I asked Timmy about that after the game. He said, yeah, I said, did you know it was coming? That's pretty risky. If you don't know that ball's coming, you'll probably be on the bench. He said, no, we've done that a lot in practice, and we've practiced it, and we decided if there was ever a run out, we were going to do that. So that was a lot of fun. Good to see those guys getting up and down the floor.
Yeah, for sure. It's nice to see him have fun like that and get out, creates an energy in the building.
No doubt about that. And I thought both their quick hands, but especially Booth Gotch's length and quick hands out on the perimeter. You know, we talk about this with Washington. It's good, and you guys had it a couple of years ago when you had DeLon Wright here, but it's good if you can have, whether you're playing zone or man, somebody with some real length at the point, somebody up at the top of your defense. Washington's got it with Matisse Thybulle. He might be the best in the country at it. You guys had it with DeLon. Not only was DeLon long, but his instincts were so good at jumping in passing lanes. He must have had 50 runouts when he was here for 2 years. I think Booth can kind of be that same guy for you.
Yeah, I agree. He got out in some passing lanes and got some steals. We have been working on that all week with him, especially on the heels of Washington, telling him that he could be that guy. And it takes a while for a freshman to kind of get that, and he got it on Sunday afternoon, so that was great.
Yeah, how's his ankle? I mean, he seems to be the last week or so pretty good. He turned it initially, I think, at Kentucky was the first time. Then he's just kind of re-aggravated it a few times, but the last couple of games he's looked pretty good. And I'm sure that week off helped him too.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're right.
Booth Gotch, we had a big game. Timmy Allen had a big game. We've got to name our players of the week. Our player of the week is brought to you by University of Utah Healthcare and Sports Medicine. 16 neighborhood convenient locations for you and your family. You can visit them online at uofuhealth.org. Who's your player of the week this week in the one game?
I'm going to go with Timmy Allen with the double-double. I think he had a great week of practice. Timmy practices extremely hard. He was extremely productive and efficient, and a double-double for a freshman. And, you know, his first 5 Pac-12 games, he throws a double-double, so I'm going to go with him on that.
Yeah, 21 points, career high for Timmy Allen. First career double-double. He had 10 rebounds. He also had 4 helpers, too. He's a guy that on a pretty regular basis fills up the stat sheet for you.
That's right. He finds his way into a lot of stuff, and I think a lot of it has to do with his practice habits. He goes extremely hard in practice every day.
Where has he come the furthest from the summer till now, Andy, and where's he still got some work to do?
Well, I think he's starting to understand the college game a little better. You know, he looks a little more comfortable each time he's out there. And I think one of the things that he needs to keep improving upon is when he gets in the key, passing the ball. He's used to be able to horse it up there against some competition, but you get a guy like Schwartz on him that has some length and some strength. They're starting to come to him, and he's really got to understand that and make that extra pass. And I think it's just a feel thing for him. I think he's a willing passer, although he knows how to draw contact too, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. But when he can figure that out to do both, I think he'll be extremely efficient and potent.
We haven't seen much of a perimeter game from him this year. Few shots here and there. He's made a couple of threes. Yesterday, knocked down that quarter jumper that was foot on the line. He's got that funky kind of clutch, bring it down shot, but it seems to work for him. Are you guys working on getting him out on the floor a little bit more, or is that just going to be a process as his career kind of goes along?
I think it's a process thing, Bill. It's hard to work with him during the season. He shoots his free throws great. I mean, he's right on. It's a smooth stroke, but he just needs to get comfortable shooting those threes, and if he can do that, his game will really expand. And I think he needs that in the spring and summer, where he gets comfortable reps and gets that little hitch out of it, because he does have good rotation for the most part.
Timmy Allen, our University of Utah Healthcare Team Player of the Week. That brings us to our Subway Sub of the Week for our one game this week. Who came off the bench that you liked yesterday?
I'm going to give Booth it. You know, with him coming off the bench and creating that havoc with his length and getting in some passing lanes and doing that stuff, I think he changed the game a little bit for sure, and kind of surprised them with how aggressive he was. And so I'm going to go with Booth, and then some of the fun stuff he did in the break was great for the crowd. Yeah, no doubt about that. How much, he's still skinny as a rail, how much weight would you guys as a staff like to see him add? That's going to be interesting because, you know, he doesn't have a huge frame. No. You know, Timmy's got big, strong legs, and even Riley's got some room to put that weight on. But Booth, he's going to have to watch it so he avoids injuries. So in the off season, I think that'll be something Coach Rock and Trevor, work out with him. It was hard this last off season because he didn't get here till later for him to get on that program. But I think you'll see a jump in strength and his physique going into next season.
Yeah, Dejan didn't have a lot of room on his frame either, and you can see it. He's 3 years in the NBA now, and Delan's still relatively skinny, but you can see he's added a little bit of strength and weight.
Yep.
And Booth will have to do that, playing the point guard. If he wants to get in the lane amongst the big boys and attack the basket, he's going to need probably, 5-10 pounds of strength on him, right?
Yeah, especially in this conference with the big, strong bodies. If you want to go in there and play with the big boys, you better be ready.
So Booth Gotch will be our Subway sub of the week. If you want a little something extra with your wrap at Subway, they'll give you a signature wrap at a 21-ounce drink for just $1 more. Stop by a Subway today and enjoy Subway Eat Fresh. We're going to bring Riley Batten in, another one of the terrific freshmen, coming up here in just a minute. Talk to me a little bit about how you guys found Riley in Southern California, his recruitment, and how things have gone a little bit since he's been on campus.
Yeah, Riley was discovered early. We had recruited him for a couple years. He actually came to our elite camp here at Utah, and he played in the same AAU program as Jace Johnson, Jace's last AAU program. So that was kind of the connection there, and they were able to come up here and come to elite camp, which kind of solidified their interest, I think, and our interest in having him here. And Riley's done a good job. He's a really good kid. He's conscientious. He wants to do well. I think the adjustment has been a lot for him because of some of the high school stuff where they played him at. I think it's been a real transformation for him. And so
when you say that, is that especially on the defensive end because of who he's having to guard now versus who he was guarding in high school?
That's correct. Yeah, I mean, there's lots of hybrid guys in the Pac-12 that can do a lot of things, pass, shoot, dribble at that spot at a high level. That's kind of the way the game's going. So Riley's had to adjust to that, but he's one of those guys, he's going to give you all he's got trying. So I think it's just him getting more comfortable out there. And you kind of see it game by game. There's less mistakes and less blow-bys, as we call them. And so he gets after himself. I mean, we get after him, but he gets after himself too. So that's going to make him better.
It was interesting yesterday. His outside shot really wasn't falling for him. And he's a guy that could step out on the floor and stretch it and shoot it a little bit. So he went into the basket, attacked the basket a little bit, got in the paint, got a couple of back-to-back buckets.
Yeah, I think he's a smart player. He's a great kid. He's a smart kid. And he wants to do well. He's about trying to do the right thing. So I think you'll just see him continue to grow as the season goes along.
So Riley Batten will join us coming up next, the freshman out of Ventura County and Oak Park High School in Southern California. We'll talk to him about how the freshman year's going, what he's expecting coming up this week, and a whole lot more. This is the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show, presented by Smith's. We're back after this from Learfield. Yeah, he doesn't just score the basketball. He can pass it a little bit, too. That's Riley Batten, who joins us here on the Coaches Show tonight. How are you, Riley?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing great. So freshman year, is it going as you had thought it would? Has it been a little bit different? What were your expectations coming in out of high school?
You know, obviously you want to come in and do your best and help the team win. And I think that I just keep getting more comfortable and comfortable as the season goes along. And I'm really enjoying the process so far.
Is it a strange adjustment? Because I always joke with you guys. You guys have all been the best player on your team or one of the best players on your team in high school and usually probably on your AAU team as well. And then you step here, and it's a different ball game. I mean, you got everybody here at this level was as good or better than you. They're usually older than you, so they've been through it before. So what were those first few summer open gyms and those first few practices this fall like for you?
Well, it was all just a learning experience. Like you said, we're all used to being, you know, the guy on our teams, and coming in, it takes a little bit of adjustment to figure out, like, okay, like these guys are pretty good too. Like you had to change some of the things you do and kind of just get acclimated to the speed and size difference. But
what was the first real eye opener for you? Whether it was a practice or an open gym or something like that, that it was going to be a little bit of work to get to these guys' level.
Yeah, well, during the open gyms in the summer, we still hadn't really practiced yet, but Novak Topovic, he's the fifth-year senior.
Right.
He had one like rebound. He dribbled it all the way down the court and like dunked on some guy, and I was like, all right, like this is where we're at now. So, yeah, that was kind of eye-opening for me.
So your high school recruitment, we were just talking about this with Andy a minute ago. You had been on Utah's radar for a number of years. I remember, you know, Larry and I talking during maybe one of these coaches shows about this big man down in Southern California that they'd had some visits with, and I think you and your family had probably come on some unofficials to watch Utah play at UCLA or USC, and so you're being recruited, and you and Jace were in the same AAU system a little bit. You come up here to an elite camp. Mm-hmm. What caught your eye about Utah early on, or maybe it was a visit, maybe it was coming to campus, but what caught your eye initially about Utah?
You know, my family and I, all the schools that have been recruiting me, we tried our best to, you know, watch their games and kind of like research more than maybe other people would. And I really liked the style of play they had. I know they had some guys like Tyler Rawson and Kuzma and like people like that were similar size to me, similar games, and I really liked that. And then when I came to the elite camp, I just loved it up here. Like the campus, the coaches. I liked how their camp was different than the other ones that I've been to, because they were really focusing on actually getting you better in the time that you're there, as well as like competing, as opposed to just like running up and down and, you know, just playing for fun.
A little skill development to go with the games. They weren't just rolling the ball out and saying, go play, guys.
Exactly.
And I'm sure the ability to put guys into the league probably didn't hurt either. They've three guys in the last 4 years have gone to the league.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, that's the ultimate goal for me, and as I'm sure most of our team, we want to play in the NBA, and I think this is a great spot to bring our game to the next level and hopefully get there. Riley
Batten with us here on the Coaches Show tonight, freshman out of Southern California. Scored a lot. Now, you were known for scoring the basketball, but I've said this to people. You seem to like to pass the ball as much as you like to score the ball, or at least now. Maybe you're giving that impression now, but your ability to pass is pretty good and pretty interesting. Were you able to pass it much when you were in high school, or was the ball just going to you to score it?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I was the first option scoring-wise, but I saw a lot of double and triple teams in high school, and I think that really helped my passing, you know, learning where the reads would be out of those type of situations. And I've always had like a pretty good feel for the game, I feel like, and I think that just translates over to the games now.
Do you feel like your teammates are on the same page as you? I mean, you guys all on the same page, whether it's you or your Timmy or your Booth or whoever it might be, the new guys, that the guys know when the ball's coming?
Yeah, I mean, definitely now, like more than ever. We kind of know where each other wants the ball, where we could, you know, do things with it, and kind of, you know, know where we're supposed to be, and it's almost second nature now.
It's got to be tough for you when you see Timmy get the ball off the backboard. You're usually down low in rebounding position. Those guys are out on the perimeter, so it's going to take a pretty special play for you to get one of those off the backboard, isn't it?
Maybe, but hopefully I'll get one sometime.
This group is good. This is a good group, and we've seen you get better. I know there was a lot of concern early in the season. Utah fans are like, what kind of seasons it's going to be, so many newcomers. It seems like since conference play began, and I might even go back to the Nevada game, at least the first half of the Nevada game, you guys played a really good half of basketball. Mm-hmm. Probably should have led that game at the half. Mm-hmm. Where did you feel like things kind of began to click for everybody as the group? I know everybody clicks at a different time individually, but when did you feel like this group really kind of started to get together?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that first half. We kind of, they were, number 4 in the country or something when we played them, and just, being in the game with them, and we definitely felt like we should have been ahead at the half. I think that kind of showed us that we could play with pretty much anyone when we play to our capabilities, and I think we just kind of carried that on into the early conference play and hopefully moving forward.
Yeah, that second half was a little bit more bully, big boy ball, which again, 5 fifth-year seniors going against a team that had really 3 freshmen on the floor at a lot of different times. It's probably a little bit of an eye-opener, but then you go down to ASU and win. Then you go toe-to-toe with the Wildcats, and if Ced doesn't foul out, you probably win that game too. I'm going to guess at this point in time, you feel like with what's left on your schedule, you could beat anybody that's left there.
Yeah, definitely more than ever in this conference right now, I feel like it's pretty open. Like, from head to toe, teams are pretty even, like teams can beat each other. And I think we can definitely make a push to be up top this league at the end of the season. So.
You guys have the California schools coming up, the Northern California schools this week, Southern coming up in a couple of weeks. Do you have any friends or former AAU teammates or guys that are in the pack this year?
Yeah, pretty much every team I have guys I've either played with or against, and it's pretty cool to see, how we've evolved over time and stuff. I know a couple guys on both Cal and Stanford, but it's all seriousness when it comes to the games.
Yeah,
so.
Cal's struggling right now. Stanford's record probably isn't where they want it to be, but that Stanford team's a talented team, Riley. I don't know how much you've watched them play this year, how much you know of them. I'm sure you guys will get into game planning really tomorrow, looking hardcore at Stanford, but that's a good basketball team. That'll be a pretty stiff test on Thursday.
Yeah, I've watched a few of their games already, and I know a couple of their guys. I know they have like Krystkowiak Paula and a couple other guys like that, and it'll be a good test for us, but I'm sure we'll be ready to go.
So where do you feel like you're really kind of clicking right now and playing well, and what still needs some work right now?
I feel like offensively, I feel like I'm gaining my comfortableness as the season progresses. Right. Just being able to do more and more things that I kind of did in high school and my whole career. And then defensively, I feel like I'm, getting better on that every day. There's a lot to learn, especially for a freshman, and I'm trying hard to, get that down, watching film with coach, putting in extra work in the weight room and stuff like that. And I feel like that'll only get better as time goes on. Well,
thanks for coming by today. I know it's a day off for you guys. We appreciate you swinging by. We'll see you Thursday night up on the farm.
Thank you. Great to be here.
There you go. Riley Batten with us here on the show tonight. He and his teammates will be on the farm Thursday night. That's a 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Sorry, 7 o'clock Mountain Time, 6 o'clock Pacific Time start time. We'll have our network pregame at 6 Mountain Time as the Utes of the Cardinals square off at Maples Pavilion. We'll take a quick time out, come back and talk a little bit more about Stanford. Riley's just kind of getting into it a little bit. I'm sure Andy Hill knows a whole lot more about the Cardinal. We'll do that next as the Coach's Show rolls along, presented by Smith's and right here from Learfield. That was Ted. I think that was Ted Robinson from the Pac-12 networks right there. That was somebody from the Pac-12 network. Stanford Cardinal will be there on Thursday night. We meaning me and this guy right here, Andy Hill, who's sitting in tonight for Larry Krystkowiak, who's out on the recruiting trail. Maples Pavilion hasn't always been a good place for you guys. No. You've lost some tough, heartbreaking games when you've had better teams than them on paper. It's a weird place. Stanford's a beautiful campus. The arena, the building's nice. They don't draw great there, and we've played at some weird times there over the years, and sometimes there's not very much juice in the building, and it's just strange. We play at odd times. It'll be 6 o'clock local time when we play, so I'm going to tell you there won't be very many people there probably on Thursday night either. But that being said, they do have a couple of talented players. The guy we heard the highlight from coming in, Dejan Davis, very good player, and Krystkowiak Pala, who's a very good player, is having a nice year as well. I think he's a junior this year? Sophomore, junior. Anyway, very good basketball player as well. So they've had some nice pieces. Haven't had a great start to the conference season. They're at 2-4, but when you guys have put in the tape and watched them a little bit, what do you see from Stanford?
Well, exactly what you said. Some talented guys. Kezi, I think, is a lottery pick on the draft board right now, and watching him, I can see why. He's improved, and he's playing really well. He didn't play in Pullman on Saturday. He had some back spasms, but he played really well at Washington, especially in the second half. He's a load. He's a big target. He's got skill. He can pass. He can dribble. I mean, I think he'll have a chance to make a lot of money doing this one day. So it starts with him. He's averaging about 22 a game in his last 5. Right. Dejan Davis is second, about 13, and he's improved. Kind of compare him to Booth a little bit. Although he had to start, I believe, a lot for him last year.
As a freshman,
right now, yeah. But he's taken a jump, and you would hope that Booth would take that same jump. They're both long and athletic point guards. He's shooting it pretty well, and he can really get out in transition and sees over the top of the defense. I've been impressed with Josh Sharma.
Big body guy.
Yeah, he's had some good games. He's long and he runs and puts in a good effort. So they've got a talented team, and they're long, they're big. I mean, they've got some guys, and it's interesting. Some other guys stepped up. Carmack Ryan's out too, their shooter, who's playing really well, freshman. He sprained his ankle bad in the Arizona State game. I can't remember which one watching. And so with him out, some other guys got to step up, and Sheffield, who hadn't been playing much, and Willis, stepped up. So they've got some guys, and I don't know what the status is for Kezi. I'm sure he'll play. But those other guys played well at Washington State.
Yeah, and they usually always have 1 or 2 guys that just come in and shoot the basketball, too. They usually have 1 or 2 of those guys that aren't going to do much, but they'll step behind that arc. And I think they've got an Aussie kid who last year, I don't know that he's got it. He kind of had the man bun going last year, and I think he's playing a little bit more for him this year, right?
He is, and he can shoot it. Carmack Ryan, I think, took some of his minutes early on, but he played a lot at Washington and Washington State because Ryan was out. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. They've got plenty of pieces to the puzzle, and in defense of their coaching staff, like if they had Reed Travis look out, they lost what would be Pac-12 Player of the Year, probably in most people's minds, who is at Kentucky now. With him around this group, they'd be really special. Obviously, that inside force that he provides, inside, outside, and rebounding. So
I don't know the inside out of the program or what went on and what kind of conversations they had, but he declared in late April, early May that he was going to graduate transfer. Well, first he went and tested the NBA waters, and then he decided he was going to be a graduate transfer. And you know this as well as anybody. Unless those conversations were had, they didn't recruit his spot, and that's a pretty big loss to have to fill in May.
Yeah, it's really hard, especially at a school like Stanford, I would guess, without knowing all the specifics. But the academic piece of it, trying to get a guy late that fits those academics, I mean, it's near impossible. It's hard enough to replace veteran Pac-12 players as it stands at any time, but then you've got a guy that's got 3 years under his belt who is poised to be Pac-12 Player of the Year. You just don't replace him that late. So I'm not sure of all the circumstances, but I know it's a heck of a loss for him in the conference because I I think they would have been picked in that 1-2 range with him for sure.
Yeah, Jared Haas was a terrific player. He was a couple of years behind me in college at the University of Kansas. Tenacious. He began his career actually at Cal, of all places, for a year, and then transferred to Kansas. He was always a get-after-you defensive player, floor-burn guy. Are they playing much man, get-after-you defense, or are they playing a little bit of zone, or a little bit of both?
They're doing a lot of stuff on D. They play some zone. They play some 1-3-1. They play some man. They play some switching man. So he's throwing the kitchen sink at you is what I would say.
A lot of different looks.
Yeah, and they're long. They can really affect you in passing lanes and a little bit like Washington, some back taps and some blocks. So it'll be a definite challenge, and you're right. We've had some dang close games there where we probably should have come out on top a couple different times with missed free throws or something like that. So part of it's good. We've been competitive there and played well. We just haven't kind of got over the top on a couple of them.
6 o'clock pregame, 7 o'clock start time, Mountain Time for that game on Thursday night at Maples Pavilion in Palo Alto. Cal on Saturday. I know you guys haven't looked a lot at Cal yet. They've had a lot of struggles. They're winless right now. They're going through a lot of things. Those are the dangerous teams sometimes to play, Andy, especially on the back end of not having a lot of time to prepare.
Yeah, and we have a short turnaround, as do they, but they bumped the game up to 5 o'clock, I think, on Saturday for some type reason, and they had reached out to Larry and asked him if he was okay with it, and he's like, yeah, you know, try and help out the league and whatever they needed. So it is going to be a short turnaround, but they have the short turnaround too, and that's just the way it is. So yeah, I mean, I just don't think this year any game's going to be easy for anybody in this conference. I mean, it's not going to be easy because any given night, you know, you can get beat.
Yeah, we'll take a time out here on the Coaches Show. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the conference. Utah hasn't seen everybody yet, but they've seen 5, and maybe they've seen 2 of the better teams, 3 of the better teams. We'll talk to Andy a little bit about the Pac-12 Conference when we get back. This is the Coaches Show presented by Smith's and right here from Learfield. That's our drive of the game presented by Nissan. That was defense leading to offense. Timmy Allen with the steal, Booth Gotch with the finish. On the court, it's the job of the defense to protect the rim. On the road, it's the job of the 2019 Nissan Rogue to help protect you with its available advanced safety technologies. Nissan's a proud supporter of college and Utah athletics. A couple of more segments, and we're out of here tonight. Utah Basketball Coaches Show presented by Smith's. Andy Hill sitting in with us tonight for Larry Krystkowiak, who's on the road recruiting. You guys never stop recruiting. You guys, somebody's out on the road. I was at practice the other day, and DeMarlo Slocum was out recruiting. He wasn't at practice, and I think Tommy and Coach are out recruiting right now. You're holding down the fort here, but you guys have to squeeze it in where you can. Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's the lifeblood of the program. Obviously, you've got to have good players, and especially in this conference, to compete. And, you know, these days, things have changed a little bit with the new NCAA rules. I think you're going to see a lot more kids transfer, even more maybe than they anticipated or had been, just because they've set it up like that. Right. They've helped create that pathway, and some of it's not wrong. Kids just want opportunities, and if they're not playing, then there's maybe other opportunities for them. So, yeah, recruiting's changed a little bit because you have to have more names and maybe plan Bs going into the spring, depending on how things go. Are you guys finding that you maybe are to a point, I know football's doing this, they have a lot more scholarships, but are you finding where maybe you guys leave a scholarship open annually for a transfer player? Knowing, or maybe you just plan on the fact that maybe somebody's going to leave your program and that scholarship will open, but as you said, it's almost become like free agency, and you've got to have a scholarship available, right? Yeah, I think two things. I think you're right. Maybe having one open is smart, but maybe planning on one being open. And like I say, I don't think it has really anything to do with the status of a program anymore. You know, you used to see kids transfer out of what could be considered bad programs, but I think that's really changed because the dynamics of the kids growing up with what they're told and how the system is all based upon them having opportunities. So when you get to college, there's very few kids that really want to sit the bench and wait their turn. They want opportunities, and if they don't get them, then now they've created a pathway through the NCAA that has made it a lot easier to transfer, you know, this transfer portal. So I think you're going to see a lot more of it, which isn't maybe a terrible thing for the kids, but to your point, you've got to be prepared for that. Does that make life easier or harder, or it's just life for you guys? Well, I think it's made it a little more difficult because they've created this transfer portal, which is basically like free agency in a lot of ways. And so you have to be prepared for that. And when you say we're recruiting all the time, I don't think it used to be quite like that, but now it's become for sure like that because you have to be prepared for that. And it didn't used to be as big a deal, but now it is, obviously, and it's just part of it. When you guys take a transfer, how closely do you have to vet that transfer? Meaning, there's a recent kid transfer. Yeah. You know, maybe it was playing time, maybe there were other issues. And what's kind of the process that you guys do? Do you call the coach from the school? How willing are coaches to give true information? I mean, how do you vet a kid that looks on paper like he might be pretty good, but there's got to be a lingering question or two as to why he left the program? Well, and I think there used to be more of that also because it was less transfers 10 years ago. So when a kid transferred, you always felt like, well, okay, the program's in a bad way or something's going on with the kid. But anymore, I'm not sure that's the case. So you rely upon your connections, and you do call head coaches or assistant coaches and see if there is something and what's going on. You do your background, but I think you can't just draw a conclusion anymore that there was something going on. It's different now. They've created this transfer portal, and therefore kids know and their people know that they can get on this. You don't even have to have a permission to contact anymore. Once they're on the transfer portal, it's free game, fair game. Yeah. So now that what I see happening is now that people know that and the kids know that and people around them know it, it's going to become a deal. Like they're going to get on the transfer portal. And so I think it's maybe less consequences or less maybe somebody did something wrong as opposed to I just want more of an opportunity. All right, let's take our final break. We'll come back on the other side, talk some Pac-12 basketball with Andy Hill. on the Larry Krystkowiak Coaches Show presented by Smith's right here from Learfield. Donnie Tillman had a nice game yesterday. Donnie Tillman's going to have to step that game up continually. He's gotten off to a pretty good start in conference play. Got to continue that, especially on the road this week. We mentioned Stanford, we mentioned Cal this week, and obviously Utah is on the road. Andy Hill, by the way, sitting in for Larry tonight. What do you make of what you've seen out of the conference so far?
Well, I don't have the Pac-12 network this year because I've got DirecTV. So unless I go,
yeah, but you have access to all the games here at the office.
I haven't watched near as many games as I have in the past of the Pac-12. You know, I've watched film, but I really do believe it's wide open. I mean, as good as Washington is, they've had some close ones. You know, and so they should, like I say, on paper, when you have seniors that have played that many games and are talented, you should be good. That's just the way it is. And they've done a nice job. So I'm not surprised by their success. The rest of it, to me, is wide open.
Are you surprised there isn't an elite team in this league, though? There's not, Andy. I mean, by national standards, there's not a great team in this league right now. And why do you think that is? Because this league has put a lot of talent in the NBA in recent years, but there isn't a team that's a top 25 barely. I mean, there's nobody in the top 5 or top 10.
Well, I think you said it. We've lost a lot of talent to the NBA. We have over the last 5 years. We probably have had a hard time replacing all that talent. And if you really look at it, everyone's doing a pretty good job recruiting. Like, they really are. Everyone's doing a good job, and therefore I think there's less players available to stack to a roster, in addition to what you and I just talked about, kids don't want to sit. So when a kid gets hurt or something happens with a kid, I don't believe teams are as deep. Like in Arizona loses ACOT starter. They're not as deep as they used to be because kids don't want to sit on the bench and go through that. They have this transfer option now. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, answering your question, like maybe at Utah you have a Utah kid that wants to stick around.
Right.
But not at all programs, and so therefore rosters are less deep, and we've lost some kids to the draft, and kids are spread out.
Thanks for coming in and pinch hitting tonight.
You got it, Bill. Thank you.
See you Thursday. That's Andy Hill for Larry. I'm Bill Riley. Talk to you Thursday night from Stanford. This is Utah basketball from Learfield.